Hey people, how you doing? Welcome to the Sports Therapy Association podcast. My name is Matt Phillips, creator of runchatlive.com. And if you are listening to this podcast, then it is recorded live on the Sports Therapy Association YouTube channel, 8 o'clock every Tuesday. So if you'd like to join us live and be able to ask our fantastic guest questions directly and hang out with people who are in the live lounge as we speak, then all you got to do, like I say, is head along to the Sports Therapy Association YouTube channel at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday. And people are coming in as we speak, which is great. John W. is here with a wave. If you do come in and join us, then what we can do is we can bring your questions up onto the screen, which is what I'm doing now, as you'll be able to see if you watch the YouTube video. Hey, Glenn Murphy, thanks for joining us again. Gary Benson, founder of the STA, has also joined us as well. So it is a great networking opportunity and a chance for you to show off your logo if you want, which is important in these times. Marco Mendonca, I always forget if it's Donca or Donsa. Let's go for Donsa. Marco Mendonca is here. How are you doing, Marco, with his great questions last week? So anyway, yes, if you listen to the podcast and you want to join us live, then that's what you need to do. Talking of last week and the week before, we have been having a focus on nutrition this month. It's been great. I mean, every month is great, and I'm always hailing every month as the best one yet. It's just the way I am. But nutrition is a fascinating topic, and we've been fortunate enough to have some amazing episodes and guests, which are all available on your favorite podcast app. Or if you want to watch the video, then just head along to the Sports Therapy Association YouTube channel. How did it all start? Well, it started, and I'm bringing images up onto the screen for those of you who are listening to the podcast. It started with talking about eating disorders with Nick Pollard in part 1, which was episode 152. Nick Pollard is Director of Family Mental Wealth and co-author of the Oxford Specialist Handbook on Eating Disorders. And it was a fascinating hour, amazing hour, talking about how Nick and his wife got through the very difficult stage when their daughter Elizabeth was suffering from anorexia, and they found the misinformation and the lack of information out there. So when Elizabeth, their daughter, turned into Dr. Elizabeth 𝐓𝐻𝐞, she later decided we need to do something about this and help other people in the same situation. So together they formed Family Mental Wealth. They went on to write the book, and there's also a course, Eating Disorders, e-learning for health professionals. Amazingly cheap, ridiculously cheap. I said so last week. And if you listen to the episode, I'm pretty sure you will decide, right, I need to do this course. This is something that my clients and patients I need to be aware of. So like I said last week, there is a 50% discount for STA members for the first 100 who want to do the course. So instead of being something like £70, it comes to £35. I think that's right. All you need to do is contact us with your STA number just to show you a member. And you can email Gary. I think that's okay. Gary's here tonight. Gary@sta.co.uk. Or if you prefer, you can email Matt at the sta.co.uk. So that was an amazing episode, a really beautiful episode, touching story, and really inspiring and empowering with the information that these guys are producing. And with a bit of luck, I can't actually reveal it yet, but it looks like Nick will be with us as well at Therapy Expo this year. That's coming up in November, which will be really exciting. That's going to be one to make sure that you watch as well. Anyway, in part 2, which was 153, which was last week, the topic was relative energy deficiency in sport, commonly known as REDS or REDS. That again was just an amazing episode with Lucy Gilbanks, who is an ex-international athlete and a researcher specializing in REDS. Lucy competed for a number of years as a lightweight rower. Again, there's pictures appearing on YouTube if you listen to the podcast and you want to see these images, and just go along to YouTube and watch it. And Lucy gave us an incredible and, again, very emotional story about her time as a female athlete, suffering from what was clearly at the time REDS, but the lack of information and insight around her. Many of her and her fellow athletes without menstrual cycles for a year, because that was regarded as the norm. It's something we'd heard before, as well as all the other symptoms which Lucy talks about, caused by cutting weight, reducing weight, because of the restrictions which are put in place to be able to compete and win. So again, an amazing episode. It was super interesting as well for us guys here. We've talked about biopsychosocial an awful lot, and rightfully so. And it was interesting to see how Lucy Gilbanks, in one of her research papers, which the links are in the show notes, she did show, it was really interesting. I've talked about this so much this week with other people, how there's the physical implications of REDS, so the disrupted sleep, the decreased performance, the bowel disruption, the menstrual dysfunction, etc., etc. But then Lucy wanted to highlight with her research the psychosocial implications, like reduced social interaction, the poor emotional regulation, the low mood, the poor concentration, disordered eating. And it was a really interesting distinction, because often it's the psychosocial implications which then go on to ruin that person's life and to put them in far more pain than maybe the physical implications. So that was a really interesting discussion and distinction. And I recommend that you do listen to episode 153 when you get the chance, either on podcast apps or go along to YouTube, and you can watch the video there. And also it's on our website at the STA.co.uk. And then we reach tonight. And again, once again, it's going to be a fantastic topic. I've spent my time researching and reading up on it. Obviously, that's what I have to do. I'm the host. I need to show that I know a little bit about it, but I must admit, and I've told my guest already, it was a bit of a black area that I wasn't quite sure about. We're going to be talking about the gut microbiome with special guest Dr. Lucy Williamson, who is an award-winning registered nutritionist with a master's degree in nutrition. She is resident nutritionist and ambassador for Love British Food and founder of the Gut Health Project. It's going to be a great episode. People in the live lounge, as always, if you've got questions, then fire them away. I've told Lucy, as I tell all guests, to direct my attention to any questions you may have in case I miss it. A thanks to Nikki Mansfield, actually, who I believe did one of Lucy's courses. Nikki Mansfield has just said in the comments, evening all, very interested in this subject and to hearing Lucy's insights on it. Yeah, aren't we all, Nikki? Thank you for your recommendation. So I think that's everything done. So without further ado, we will start episode 154 of the Sports Therapy Association podcast with my special guest, Dr. Lucy Williamson. Dr. Lucy Williamson, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. What an interesting few minutes in hearing about the previous episodes. I can't wait to catch up with those, actually.
I'll tell you what, I mean, obviously it's a subject which is obviously a passion of yours, and we're looking forward to hearing all about that. And we could have had so many different topics and subjects, but the two we ended up with were such emotionally charged personal stories. And they both have this common theme of people who have suffered because of either an eating disorder or disordered eating, which I thought was a lovely way of putting those words. And then they've come forward and thought, right, I need to help other people, which is just sends shivers down my spine. It's such a beautiful thing when we have guests who do that. So yeah, the benchmark has been set pretty high in terms of emotional content. I'm sorry. A few tears were shed last week and the week before. So yeah, it's a little bit, there's a challenge there for you. But hey, what a subject as well, the gut microbiome, fascinating area. But also fascinating has been your story, because it didn't always start with looking after humans, did it, should we say?
No, there we go. Yes, so for anyone who doesn't know, I was a vet for 15 years, and I've done a lot of, thinking about that the last couple of years while I've been developing my human nutrition business, is why that was, what my path was. And actually, as a child, I just loved nature and anything very natural, and just wanted to be connected with nature and animals, of course. So yeah, I'd always had an interest in nutrition, and I think then when I took time out to be a mum, it just became even more of a constant little voice in my head. And I was just fortunate that where we live, I had the chance to take 18 months and do a master's in nutrition, and then I just was so excited about how food fuels us. And the reason I did a master's was because I just wanted to get the actual evidence and the science, because nutrition it's getting better, but it's not been all that well policed, and I didn't want to kind of have a faddy approach. And I was just, I love what I do, and I've been really pleased to be able to move into human health with it, for sure. Yeah.
Fantastic. It's interesting to hear you say evidence, because one of the things about the podcast is it's got kind of the unofficial tag of putting evidence back into soft tissue therapy. Our profession has had a bit of a shady past, and still a lot of the information that gets put out on nationwide syllabi is a little bit, well, it's just wrong. I can't think of a nicer way of putting it. It's antiquated information which needs putting into a box and with a lid shut. So with nutrition as well, it's such a large area. Just in general, you say it's getting a bit better, but there's still an awful lot of misinformation out there, isn't it? Why is it? What is it about nutrition which allows so much misinformation to spread so quickly?
I think it's very, food. Everybody is involved with food. I think the media is a problem, like it is for many professions. They and the whole marketing of food, of course. Companies will jump on to healthy slogans and ideas and go with what's popular, and so it's complex, and the environment that we live in produces all sorts of issues with choices around food, and I think it's part of everyone's everyday, and everybody wants to be healthy, and everybody knows that food is a key driver of that. So sort of almost this obsession with trying to find the right information. And I mean, basically the sort of general rule of thumb is that if you connect with a registered nutritionist, then they have to have a degree in nutrition. And then there are also nutritional therapists who won't necessarily have a degree, but have had a high level of nutrition education. But unfortunately, you can do a nutrition course for a weekend and call yourself a nutritionist. So yeah, it's a case of just really checking them out. I'm registered with the Association for Nutritionists in the UK, and if you go on there, it just gives you a lovely directory. So yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, there's lots of parallels. There's no registered official kind of, a sports therapist could use that title tomorrow and just open up a shop, and it's similar with nutrition, isn't it? Where, as opposed to an allied health professional who can't use the word physio even in an advert, or chiropractor, osteopath. So yeah, that helps explain it. So the gut microbiome, I'm really excited. It's one area of nutrition, but the more I look at it, it's an area which has got massive consequences, and it spreads and kind of affects everything in life. So I'm excited to hear, maybe first of all, what it is for people who aren't familiar with what we're talking about when we talk about the gut microbiome.
Yeah, wow. It is actually the fastest growing area of medical research today. So that's why I love it, because it's, first and foremost founded in, or grounded, I should say, in robust science. It's brilliant. It's a very rare thing, actually, because the media are on it, and it's also a very good thing. So there you go. What is the gut microbiome? So in a nutshell, it is very exciting inside all of us. Right now, we have literally billions of microorganisms. So I mean bacteria and yeast, fungi, even viruses, which are good. That's the thing to grab onto. These are good microorganisms, and they live at the end of our intestine, in our large intestine, which is also known as our colon. And we've always known they were there, but we just thought they were there because it's a kind of dirty place, and so bacteria probably hang out there. But anyway, what we know now is that they take the food that we eat, and they do things with it that we can't do ourselves. So although we can produce enzymes to digest our food, probably about 20 or so different ones, these microbes inside us produce thousands of different chemicals, and they literally extract nutrients from our food. And in doing that, it's like carrying around a little pharmacy inside you. That's the best way to think about it. Your own pharmacy inside you. If we're nurturing them and looking after them well, they produce for us thousands of chemicals which actually interact with our own biology and really optimize our functioning as a human being. So they are just very, very crucial. And because of that, they have now been linked with, hugely important areas in medicine, protecting against types of cancer, allergy, inflammation, heart disease. One of the biggest areas is that they really play a vital role in your immune system. So yeah, it's exciting because it's really looking at whole health, and that's what I guess we all love here is how the whole body works, how it all works together. And that's why I really love it. It's a very natural process. It's very easy for everyone to look after it. It's just a case of knowing a bit about it, you know, and you get the rewards either right now or in the future, protecting your longer term health too.
It sounds like most of our audience are soft tissue therapists. Okay, so we were talking a little bit off air. We do get people coming to us with lots of different reasons for pain, and sometimes we never even really manage to pinpoint why they're in pain. But in your experience and what you've read and learned about the possible effects of poor gut health, what are some of the cases that we could be helping our clients? What might they come in with, which they don't realize could be down to poor gut health? And with a little bit of information from us just to guide them to the right direction, how could we help them?
Yeah, I was thinking about that before I came on during the day. And I mean, there's so many different ways of looking at it. You can either look at it from the sort of whole health point of view, and they undoubtedly build resilience. And so that's obviously a good foundation. They are very involved in inflammation, and I'd be really excited to kind of expand on that a little bit for you, because, you know, even muscle inflammation can be part of a whole sort of whole body inflammation. It doesn't necessarily, as you will all know, it's not necessarily just the muscles. It may be part of a whole sort of systemic issue. So I think that's very interesting. Mental health, I mean, it was so interesting hearing what you had on last week, and the REDS, and, you know, there's this fascinating area now with the gut brain axis, and we recognize that the gut microbiome gives us this emotional organ really in our gut with direct links to the brain. So you know, so in a way, you know, that's hugely important as well. Yeah, so let me know which you'd like me to unpick first, I guess.
I think probably if I'm putting myself into the shoes, well, I mean, it's all interesting. Let's go with the inflammation first of all, because I think that's something which a lot of therapists are aware of, and they can make sense that if we can somehow bring down someone's inflammation, then that could have wonderful effects. So yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, so to describe it and give a bit of clarity, I think it's quite helpful to understand where the microbiome comes from in the first place. You know, how do we end up with all these billions of bacteria inside us? And so basically you go right back to childbirth, and when the process of natural childbirth is when a baby goes from being completely sterile inside the mother to then getting its first colony, if you like, of microbes. And then depending on how that baby grows up, how it the food it eats, the environment that it's exposed to, determines how its microbiome develops. And we all have a completely unique collection of bacteria inside us. No two people are the same. It's kind of like your fingerprint. It's very unique to you. And so then kind of moving on from there, so we've hopefully built up this nice, and we want it to be as varied as possible, full of as many different types of microbes as possible. And then there's this interesting concept to take on board, that our immune system, and this is the connection forward to inflammation, our immune system actually, at least 2/3, if not more, of the cells that make up our immune system actually sit within the wall of our gut. And what we know from really amazing science now is that the microbes in our gut are literally kind of exercising our immune system and helping it to recognize what it needs to react against and what it doesn't need to react against. So throughout life, you know, hopefully if you're really kind of nurturing your microbiome, and if you're worried that you're not, don't worry, it's something that we can solve really quickly. But it's hugely impactful on the functioning of your immune system and how well regulated it is. So if we take that one step further, we would all hope that we have an immune system that knows when to respond and when not to, or crucially, when not to over respond. So I think you mentioned rheumatoid arthritis at one point earlier on, and that's the classic case when your immune system is over responding. And that really interesting, what we know from research again is that often in cases where we have patients with some kind of autoimmune disease where there's a lot of inflammation going on in the body, they also have quite a disadvantaged microbiome. It's quite interesting. There's real connection there. So so by really nurturing good gut health, you're protecting yourself against that inflammation happening in the first place, or you're helping to correct it, or at least really reduce medication that you might need to be on. And also our microbes, I mentioned all these thousands of chemicals that they produce for us. Many of those are the chemicals involved in that inflammation cascade. So how cells speak to each other and how they set up an inflammatory response in one part of the body. So, and it's always beneficial, anything that our microbes are doing for us is always beneficial if we've looked after it well. So yeah, it's definitely an area that I certainly have clients who have what I would call sort of systemic inflammation, and it's hugely helpful for sure. And interestingly, in a way, I mentioned mental well-being, and it's all so interconnected, and that's what's sort of wonderful about all these subjects that we're talking about. But often if you've got inflammation going on in your body, you're actually quite tense and you're anxious and you're stressed, and these are the worst things possible for our microbiome. Another wonderful thing we can do for gut health is to really enhance that sort of autonomic nervous system, the calming effect, to get us out of that sort of fight or flight response. And that has a hugely beneficial on gut health too. So it's almost chicken and egg, actually. Yeah, I hope that kind of starts to paint a picture as to how it's involved.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, wonderful explanation. It's interesting because I've got two things. It's such an interesting topic. I've got two things I want to say. I don't know what order to do them in. The first thing comes to my head, and I think this is a danger with nutrition, is certain listeners and definitely maybe clients are going to think as soon as you start saying, oh, you need to do this, they're going to think, oh, here we go. Atkins Part 3, or they're going to, it's just another fad. It's going to be another way that books are going to be sold. How do we cut to this chase to show that this isn't a fad? We're not going to, I suppose you could, that's my other question is, you kind of alluded to, it's not that difficult to improve the gut microbiome. It's not a case where we're going to start changing our lifestyle drastically. So maybe, yeah, you could answer by giving us an idea of what are the simplest changes we could do in order to start improving our gut health.
Yeah, so that's the best way to do it, is just to see the benefits for yourself, for sure. But also our key sort of UK gut health expert is Professor Tim Spector, who lots of your listeners are probably well aware of him. He did a lot of amazing research during COVID, and he works out of King's College in London. He's sort of world renowned and just producing phenomenal research, and so you can't really get more validation than that for it as a topic. So that's a great starting point. But yeah, as far as looking after it, I kind of tend to go with what I call the 3 Ps. So the first one of those most people probably will have heard of, which is probiotics. And that is when we are taking on board more live bacteria to add to the ones that we already have. So, obviously there are probiotic supplements, but being a nutritionist, I much prefer to get it from food. And so probiotic food, live fermented cultures, things like yogurt, Kefir, if any, I can talk more about that. That's a fermented milk drink, which is far more beneficial than yogurt, but yogurt is a wonderful food. Even cheese. Cheese is a naturally probiotic food. And then you've got things like sauerkrauts, vegetable ferments. You've got drinks like kombuchas. You've got live apple cider vinegars. There's all sorts of wonderful fermented food. So that's probiotics, which is the first P. The second P is prebiotics. So pre meaning before, biotic meaning the microbes, the bacteria. So it's what we're doing, it's what we're giving the bacteria. So it's basically plants. So, you know, we're all being encouraged to eat more plants, and that's one of the main reasons why. So plants have loads of fiber, and the more different varieties of fiber we can feed our gut microbiome, the better, because we can't actually digest fiber ourselves at all. We need them to do it for us. So the second P is prebiotic, which is the food we're eating in the form of fiber from a huge variety of plants. In fact, recommended to have about 30 different ones a week, which always sounds like quite hard to do, but it's really not, because I'm going to very quickly remind people what plants are. But you've not only obviously got fruit and veg that we all think of, but you've got beans and pulses, nuts and seeds, cereals. What haven't I done? I'm sure there's lots more. Nuts, seeds, grains, cereals, pulses, fruit, veg, spices and herbs. So, you know, even spices, which seem like a tiny addition, can actually give you a lot of extra fiber, amazingly. So 30 different ones of those a week if you can.
So that's actually quite manageable. That's interesting, because I think that's where people could switch. We live in an age where people are like so polarized and switch on, switch off. Swipe, I think, is probably what people do now. So that idea,
yeah,
I don't think it's a good marketing thing to tell people to eat 30 plants a week. They'll go, yeah, right, I couldn't even name 30 plants.
exactly.
But yeah, we are talking nuts, pulses, like
yeah,
you say, grains, fruits and vegetables. You know, people could probably name 10 different vegetables, and it's just a case of trying to have a little bit more of that selection. Okay, that's very doable. I like that.
Yeah, good. And it's not a case of just having your favorite vegetables, as you're saying, and just having more of them. It's the variety that's important. So yeah, I love to think of it as just adding in lots of extra stuff. You know, I don't like restricting in any way, so just add in lots more. Number 3, then, the third P. I'm sorry about long words here. The third P stands for polyphenols, otherwise known as antioxidants, which, you know, in sport is where you've got a lot of oxidation going on in intense sport. Those antioxidants, which then repair your muscle cells after sport, are really important. And polyphenols is just another name for those. So basically, you know, all sorts of different colorful plants, and that the color, as in the color, is coming from those antioxidants. And it turns out that our gut microbes actually activate those antioxidants in our food. So, you know, it's just another really exciting discovery. So, for example, watercress, just to take one out of the blue, is very high in antioxidants. They tend to be higher in plants that have very strong flavors, very bitter flavors, or very colorful. And that actually, bizarrely, if you try mixing watercress with something like some tin pears, some lovely milk, and maybe some frozen peas for a bit of really refreshing chill, whiz it all together, and you get this amazing sort of sport recovery smoothie, because you've got all the antioxidants in there, you've got the protein and the energy in the dairy. So yeah. So those are the 3 main things. It's the fermented food, it's the fiber and the variety of the fiber from plants, and then it's all the antioxidants in our food. And those are the 3 key things that we want to just keep eating lots of. It's like rocket fuel for our gut microbiome if we can feast on that, or make sure it forms a big part of our plate each day. And I guess the other thing, like we're hearing so much about now, thank goodness it's really catching on, is to get away from the ultra processed foods, because some good research that came out of King's College recently was the effect that the additives in food have on our microbiome. So those sort of emulsifiers that you get, which make the texture of our food nice, they actually make our gut microbiome all kind of gloopy and horrible. So, you know, it's keeping the foods as whole and natural as possible.
It's fascinating listening to you and having worked with clients in the past and trying to get them to change their diet a little bit. I mean, it's all about behavior change as well, isn't it? Which is a topic in itself. And we've had experts on before, you know, you can't just tell somebody you need to eat more watercress because they might not be ready to make that change. And there's so much to do it. But the things you've said, there are little things you could do there bit by bit, just subtly, just introduce it. We're not giving up everything. I love your idea of just mixing some watercress in with some peas. I mean, that's something you could try.
Yeah.
But it's interesting as well, because like you mentioned the antioxidants, and the fact is, and I was kind of aware of this, but a lot of the foods which are actually going to be good for you tend to be the more bitter, tougher kind of stuff, which sadly, as kids, we're kind of not made to eat, or we drift away of, you know, and it's a shame because you're going to have to almost change your taste buds a little bit gradually to actually enjoy that. But it also made me think, and I can't say who I was going to watch doing this, but I don't know whether I was growing up, I've got different taste buds. Maybe I've got different unique gut microbiomes, but I've never needed salt or pepper on food. Actually, pepper a little bit maybe, but never salt. So it amazes me when I see people chucking salt all over it, even when they haven't tasted it. You know, and it drives me mad. And I have to, my wife, I can't say anything because I know what's going to happen to my thigh if I say something in front of my wife. Isn't that amazing when people just put salt on or pepper or condiments when they haven't even tasted it?
Yeah.
And I guess that if you are including some of these herbs, these spices, these natural things, which will give us that flavor, the idea is we use them instead of just chucking and covering it all with these two condiments, which kind of monopolize everything.
Yeah, and it is the flavor is everything. You know, if you're getting all these natural ingredients, then you do start to get this kind of burst of flavor. But you're right, it is a very gradual process because we've all been had our taste buds, you know, adjusted to sweet things unknowingly over the last decades, and it's a gradual process for sure. Stepping away from that. I mean, I'm not saying never enjoy sweet food because I'm a cake eating nutritionist, but you know, there are ways. I mean, I always think cinnamon, for example, has quite a nice sweetness to it. So
which one's quite
interesting. Cinnamon.
I love cinnamon.
God, the spiced cinnamon. So you can start adding cinnamon into things, and actually you'll find it gives you a bit of a sweetness, and it just takes a while. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways around that. It's really interesting actually. People find this really interesting often to hear. You were talking about the bitterness of the plants, which tend to be really high in those antioxidants. I don't know, I just found this a really good concept that I don't go around kind of saying, oh, you must just choose organic foods and everything, because I hate to be elitist and, you know, this has got to be accessible to everybody. But I think the price gap between organic foods and non-organic foods is getting closer anyway. But it's just really interesting to note that antioxidants are the plant's natural defense mechanism. So if you are able to buy organic, what you're getting there is food that has a higher level of those antioxidants in it, because the plant hasn't relied on being sprayed with pesticides to kill off bugs. It's had to develop its own resistance. So it produces more of these gut healthy antioxidants, which makes it a really highly nutritious food for us. So, you know, I was skeptical for years about, you know, is it worth going organic? But if you're able to, or you get the chance to, that's one of the benefits.
Without mentioning any brands, but how much can you trust that top shelf in the supermarket, which has got everything a little bit more expensive and called organic? Are you actually going to get something which is going to be better for you, or does it depend on the supermarket? Or if you really want to do that, are you better off going to kind of a more local, kind of independent provider?
Well, I mean, again, it depends on everyone's situation. There's for sure, if you've got a local supplier, you know, source local is the best thing of all, because you're probably seasonal, which again means the nutrients will be higher in the food. and you can talk to the producer maybe, but organic is certified, and they do have to follow strict regulations. So there will still be a few chemicals used in organic food, but not many, and certainly it's illegal to pop it on a label without it having gone through that certification process. So
that's good to know.
You can certainly trust it if it says organic on it. And you know, one of the things with dairy that I like is if you choose organic dairy, 100% those cows have been out on grass for more than 200 days a year, which is quite nice if people are concerned about animal welfare.
That's really interesting. That's yeah, no, that's the sort of thing which can really help sway people, because I mean, I'm from Brighton, so I'm surrounded, and I was a vegetarian for a couple of years and then came off it and then we're back on it again, because I do personally just don't like this idea of cows being locked up and forced to be pregnant and just kind of milked for all of their lives. It's other people aren't bothered by it, and that's fine. But so that was my reason for like wanting to give up milk. But I love milk. I mean, I just feel better for it. You know, it's especially when I'm exercising. So it's really nice if we could pass that information on to our client. If you have organic milk, actually you're guaranteeing that the cows are around. That's just a beautiful thing to know. Where can people get more snippets like that? Is that something? Because I think that's really key in behavior change. I think with that sort of thing is having information like that.
Yeah, for sure. I can always plug my Gut Health course, which has a
that's what I was hoping.
Which has a whole section on dairy in it. It's not, well, it all is, you know, gut health is at the core of everything I do, but I do really like to kind of bring in this whole approach about, you know, what about fish, what about dairy, because it's maybe a good chance to say that gut healthy eating isn't just being a vegetarian or a vegan. It is eating a plant-based diet, and it's a really common misconception that plant-based means vegetarian or vegan, where actually it means a diet based around plants, but you can still include in that some fabulously beneficial animal protein foods as well. So the general rule of thumb is that plant-based means 2/3 plants, 1/3 anything else. So plants are forming the main thing on your plate.
That's really good.
And we also, you know now in all this rapidly growing research that's hard to keep up with, that so Tim Spector did and his team did a study over a couple of years where they compared people eating animal foods that were very processed compared to those eating animal foods that were as minimally processed as possible. And certainly those on the minimally processed animal food diet still had very good microbiomes. So it wasn't like eating animal foods was causing a problem with your microbiome at all. As long as you're getting all those lovely plants, it's getting away from the processed side of things that was most important.
This is quite a nice time to mention that, actually, and then we'll talk about your course. But this was, some people might be aware of that. It was the 𝐲𝐸 COVID symptom study, wasn't it? Where this kind of, I think it was people who had more of a plant-based diet were less likely to contract the virus or something like that.
Yeah. And which really makes sense because of what we were talking about earlier with the immune system. You know, it's the single biggest thing you can do for your microbiome is eat as many different types of plants as you can, and then that is really strengthening your immune system.
It's a good message. I love what John W has put here. I'll bring it up onto the screen. John W says, I coined the phrase auto-condimentalist for people who add salt and pepper to food before tasting it. Yeah, you can have that, John. I've never heard that before. You can have that one, mate. That's good. I might use that and put your name in brackets, an auto-condimentalist.
Yeah,
I think if you can change someone's habit, and again, it's somebody I know does it all the time, but it's like telling someone not to smoke. You're not going to say it by saying, what are you putting salt in? You don't know what it tastes like. It's just a really powerful, ingrained habit, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tricky one. So let's talk about, let me bring up your website here. Again, if you listen to the podcast, you can't see this, but I'm bringing up Lucy Williamson's website, which if you want to go and visit is quite simply I can't speak today. LW Nutrition. Are we at .com? I can't see it.
.co.uk.
.co.uk. So lwnutrition.co.uk. You can't see this if you listen to the podcast, but it's just crisp. It's lovely. It's white. It just makes you want to eat healthily. It's a very nice design. I love the way you've got the trainers at the end there. You've got fish and
Yeah, there
carrots.
you go. You see, and the cake in the middle.
Yeah, it's a really nice idea. Really, really nice idea. And then if you go to that website, there's loads of information on there. And also, if you click on the Gut Health course, then that's what we're going to talk briefly about now. It says helping your health thrive again. Yes, tell us a little bit about the course, Lucy, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah, so I think it was just born from the idea that, as we were talking about earlier, you know, people know about gut health, or they don't necessarily, but they've heard about it. They know it's a thing. And most people are so busy and time deficient. It's like, how do I actually learn about this? Because I'm not going to hear it from my doctor because it's not in medical teaching yet. And there's good reasons for that. You know, there has to be a lot of evidence before something will go into teaching, or before it becomes policy change within, you know, it's not in public health guidelines yet because we haven't had the policy change. So those of us who are very fortunate enough to have been taught it just feel like we want to shout it from the rooftops because it's so amazing and exciting, and it's all good news, and it's very accessible to do. So my gut health course was my kind of little response during COVID. I guess I'd started doing it before, and I just had a bit more time to tweak it and give it more thought. And then I started doing it live online, and now I've just got it all as a downloadable course. And it just takes you through, you know, why and how to nurture it in 6 very easy sessions, really. But there's also a lot of practical advice on there. So I'm a mum of 2 teenagers, so I'm always wanting sort of extra recipes or whatever. So you can get as much or as little from it as you want, but there are recipe demos on there. All the notes are just there ready for you if you want to print some stuff off. But I start off by kind of introducing this beautiful story that our gut microbiome is, you know, we've evolved with it, and the bacteria were actually, I'm going really broad now, I hope that's okay.
That's fine, go for it.
Yeah. Bacteria were on the planet, you know, billions of years before we were, and we've evolved with them. I mean, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. So straight away, when I kind of got that, you know, that tells you, okay, there's something that's really important because we've evolved together, therefore we need each other. So I like that concept. So I kind of go right back to the very roots of why gut health is such a natural thing, and therefore it drives our biology, and we all want to be as well and resilient as we can. So that's the beauty of gut health, is that it protects your health, and it'll also make you feel better in a few days' time, but it, as in perhaps lift your spirits or feel like you're a bit more energized. But down the road in 20 years' time, your health would have been protected as well. And then I just kind of divide it up according to, you know, we know exercise helps, so there's a session all around that. We know just being out in nature and connecting with soil, and you know, we actually breathe in microbes as well as eating live food or whatever. So there's, I kind of throw the net quite wide. It's very much about lifestyle as well as what we eat. But then I do really make a point of adding in foods like dairy, and there's a bit on comparing milk and plant-based drinks, or plant drinks, I should say. We talk about fish and why fish is a great food. If you're a meat eater, you know, here's what you need to know about eating meat. There, you know, meat is a fantastically nutrient-rich food for us. So it's very balanced. Yeah, so I think it gives a lot of information if you're just interested in actually how to eat. To be honest, it kind of has got most things covered, but it's all rooted in gut health.
No, I think that the beautiful thing is, which we can hear from the way you describe it, and I love the way of talking about, bacteria is around a long, long time before us. So it's got to be quite important.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly the sort of little snippet which I think can facilitate a conversation, and then some active listening and some behavior change. I'm so kind of like tuned into that. I mean, at the end of the day, when you look into looking after your gut health, it's not rocket science. It's pretty much everything we would suspect. Hey, guess what? Don't eat processed foods. Guess
Yeah,
what? Have some variety. So
yeah,
it's not just a simple case of it's simple. Everyone do it. Why is everyone getting fat and unhealthy? And because
yeah,
it's not that simple. There's a
yeah,
lot of behavior change which isn't going to happen. So it
absolutely.
sounds like stuff in your course is going to kind of give clinicians a really nice idea of how to facilitate those conversations
Yeah,
during that hour session of massage, because we know that during massage the joy we've got and the important part we can play is that person, not all of them, some of them just want to go to sleep, but a lot of them are really receptive and they've come to us because they kind of want some help as well. They
yeah,
need to get away from the stress in their life. So what comes
yeah,
out of our mouth,
yeah,
like we said off air, can sometimes be even more valuable at certain times than what we're actually
yeah.
doing with our hands. So we just
And
need
you're,
to be able to
yeah,
phrase it properly.
exactly. And you're right. And these little sort of visualizations, these little snippets that you talk about, they really do bring it alive. And another one that I love is when you compare. So I do some work with farmers who are farming regeneratively. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means, it's basically sort of farming with nature, kind of like organic, but almost one step further. And I'm helping them to understand and communicate the health of their food. But the reason I mention that is because the soil on those farms is just packed full of microbes because it hasn't got the impact from the chemicals. And actually, it's exactly the same thing that's happening in the soil that's happening in our own gut. And so, like a teaspoon of healthy soil, this is my next snippet, has over 10 billion microbes in it. So it has more microbes than there are people on the planet in 1 teaspoon of healthy soil. And that's what our soil should be like. But it's not,
That's
because
crazy.
we've used so much stuff on it to sterilize it. But it's things like that you just, like a light bulb moment, and you think, well, hang on a minute, that's amazing, and that's going on inside us. So the microbes in the soil are unlocking the nutrients for the plants that are growing in the soil to provide healthy food for us. And our own microbes inside us, it's like our little inner ecosystem that's unlocking the nutrients in our food to make us healthy. So it's all part of this lovely one big kind of cycle, which I think these days people are really much more receptive to. And like you say, you have this beautiful hour with people when they've come to you for this kind of sort of nurturing nourishment. It's great that you can have these conversations.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's a great example, thanks to people like yourself, of how we can make that hour even more significant for our clients and get better results, and then get more clients coming to us. Because at the end of the day, it's a business model as well. If we're helping more people with something that
Yeah,
isn't just massage, then what, they're going to tell their friends, they changed my life. Wow, you're going to
there
be
we go.
killing it.
Yeah,
Right, we've got some questions here. Nikki
yeah,
Mansfield had just said, oh, Nikki Mansfield says, oh, I love that evolutionary aspect of our symbiosis.
yeah.
I can hear your notepad, Nikki. I can hear you just broken the lead in your pencil as you underlined it 100 times. Yeah, that's exactly the sort of thing, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Then Nikki follows up with a question here, which is very interesting. Where does alcohol fit in the gut microbiome health drive? Asking for a friend. Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, so I saw that question come in, and yeah, thanks, Nikki. It's really generally still good news, actually. So we know that it's all in moderation as usual. That's the easiest way to say it. But for example, if I take a drink like cider, cider has obviously from apples, and apples, particularly the skin of apples, are a really great source of those antioxidants that we were talking about. And the process of making alcohol is fermentation, which is another form of a live food. So actually, cider is potentially quite a healthy alcoholic drink, and it's not too high in alcohol either. And then the other one that kind of falls into that same category is red wine, because the red grape skin's also really high in those antioxidants. And as long as it's maybe just sort of one glass, then we so far what we know is that the benefits of the antioxidants in that drink outweigh the effect of the alcohol. And obviously there's going to be a tipping point.
One glass. Just when you say, and again, I'm sure this is a follow-up for Nikki's question. When you say one glass, are you talking about what, one glass a day, or?
Yeah, so like if you were just enjoying a glass of red wine each night with your meal, then at the moment that is thought to be absolutely fine, potentially beneficial to your microbiome, but not scientifically proven at all. But yeah, I would encourage people to have a look at the Zoe Nutrition and Science podcast, because they have some fascinating evidence-based discussions on there, and there's certainly one about alcohol I know I've seen pop up recently, which takes that a bit further. But the only other thing to be aware of with alcohol is that certainly in wine making, eventually it gets to the point where they don't want the fermentation to keep going on, and so they add chemicals to it to stop that fermentation. Things like sulfites, which people might be aware of, which is kind of like it's almost like a sort of bactericidal chemical, and it's obviously in small amounts, and they've all been passed as being fit for human consumption. But it's just to be aware that these chemicals also exist in alcohol. So I don't want to spoil the good news, but yeah, it's.
Is there any way of checking? Does you've just pulled the carpet out from underneath a little bit there with that comment? Does the amount of what did you say? The sulfides, no?
Yeah.
Does the amount of sulfides vary from wine to wine, or?
Yeah, so most wine still has sulfites in it. It's just a very normal part of the winemaking process. Organic wine has slightly less, but not interestingly. Organic wine is still. It's more about how the grapes were farmed, where the certification comes in, and less about how the wine is actually made. So, choose organic would be better. Or what is now coming onto the scene, very new, are natural alcoholic drinks, which are produced with no chemicals at all. So you can buy natural wine, natural ciders. There's only 2 or 3 places in the UK producing them at the moment, but have a look and see they do exist. Or an alternative, though, if you feel like that kind of treat feeling, as if you're drinking a glass of Prosecco or something, I don't know if anyone would be interested to know if anyone's tried kombucha, but that is a non-alcoholic fermented sparkling drink, which really looks like you're drinking a nice glass of wine, but it's almost zero alcohol. There's a tiny bit in it, but it's almost non-existent. So that's a lovely probiotic alcohol-free drink.
Yeah, and like you say, again, it's behavior. Like some people, they can't have alcohol, but if they're having a glass with some ice in it and a bit of lemon, then they get that feeling that there is a chink, and they can say cheers, and that social aspect is satisfied, or maybe just a tonic water. So again, it's behavior, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Kombucha. It's interesting, isn't it? That, I mean, I've read somewhere like the 4 Ks. They all seem to begin with K. I'm not sure what that's all about. So you've got kefir, kombucha, kimchi, and kraut. You mentioned as well, sauerkraut.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
It's funny that, isn't it? But yeah, kombucha. Is that available in supermarkets? Is that something?
Yeah, it is. And again, they vary a lot. So they shouldn't have any sugar in them, just to put that out there, because the sugar should have all been fermented away. But like everything now, we were talking about it earlier, it becomes difficult to police. And there are now drinks calling themselves kombucha, which then add sugar in to make them taste different. And so really check the label, because they just shouldn't have sugar in them. But they are available in supermarkets. And yeah, I have my favorites, but I guess I'm not allowed to mention them.
I'm not sure what the rules are. We can put links. I have to find out. I have to contact our legal representatives. Yeah. We could put it into if you give suggestions, we could put that into the show notes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What's your favorite, by the way? Just out of interest, not saying necessarily it's more nutritious, but what is your favorite kombucha make then?
My favorite make?
Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite make is Real, REAL kombucha, and that's partly because it's made locally, so I know them, and I've seen how they produce it. And he started off doing it in the back of a van, and has gradually grown. So that's my favorite one, and it's very dry. And but yeah, you can access them. You can find them online easily.
Excellent. There you go. There's one.
Yeah, that's a nice one. Be interesting to pick up on Gary's question about.
Yes, I was looking at that. Let's bring that up. For people listening to the podcast, then Gary Benson, founder of the STA, has asked this question. Gary says, are food intolerance and allergies in any way related to gut health?
Yeah, so in a wrap, because I'm just conscious of our time. One of the lovely things that our gut microbes do for us is that they produce a chemical which is used in the wall of our gut, on the lining on the inside of our gut, and it literally cements the cells together. So for anyone listening, you can't see this, but if I kind of show my hands to the screen, and my fingers are kind of the filaments between cells, and they want to lock together really tightly. And the microbes literally produce some of the, I guess you could just call it glue, that helps those junctions stay really tight. They're called tight junctions. And for people who suffer from what we generally call leaky gut, which I don't particularly like the term, it's a bit vague, but it does, I guess, describe it quite well. So then you've got bigger gaps between those cells lining our gut, and then all of a sudden we start absorbing bigger molecules than we should through our gut wall, which sets off an allergy. So interestingly, you'd sometimes find, for example, somebody might have been in hospital for a surgery in their abdomen, or maybe just had a really bad bout of food poisoning or some kind of intestinal upset, and it's not uncommon to suddenly develop an allergy out of the blue. And we now understand that's because it's probably that traumatic incident, whatever it was, has upset the microbiome. And so you really have to work hard at building back your microbiome, or if you've been on antibiotics for a long time, you really need to kind of start taking on board some of these foods that we were talking about. Take on board some probiotics, and the probiotics are so much better in your food, because the food that's surrounding those live bacteria actually protects them as they pass through the sort of acid environment in your stomach. And whereas if you just take a supplement, you know, it's really exposed to being digested before it even gets to where it needs to be. So,
and when you say supplement, are you including some of these little drinks, these kind of probiotic drinks, without saying the name? But
yeah, I mean, the drinks are better because at least they're in liquid form, but there's a lot that are sold in dried capsule form. And if they're dried, then they're not alive, you know, they're inactive.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, look, it's true, it's 8:59. That really shot by very quickly, and there's so much more. I might have to try and twist your arm and do a part 2 at some point, but there's so much amazing information, and I think it's pretty clear that there's so much we can do, once again, as soft tissue therapists, to help our clients, or even help our clients' families or friends, because they all come and tell us stories about their mum or their dad or their sister. That hour is such an opening. And often when our clients are talking to us, they are maybe looking for a little bit of advice or something. So we can stay within our sphere of kind of what we should be talking about, but we can always kind of advise and refer and give things out and give web links and things like that. So definitely for the course, if people are interested in the course, do they go to the website? Is there a link on there which people can sign up with? Or
just go to the website, and it's all there. I'm in the process of updating it as well, so it's that will soon, you know, the information, even if you've signed up before that's happened, it will automatically update while you're doing the course. The other thing I would also maybe encourage people to do is, I've got a thing on my website where you can literally just book in a free 20 minutes with me. I just feel it's really nice to talk to people first and see what might help. So please feel free to use that function as well.
I really hope you have to change that soon. I really hope you get enough people booking in 20 minutes that you thought, oh my God, what have I done? So if you're, that'd be lovely to reach that situation. Yeah. So if you are one of the 3,000 listening to this, then there you go. Free 20 minutes with Lucy Williamson. Just go along to the website, 𝐷lucywilliamson.co.uk. And there you go. What's 3,000 by 20 minutes? That's quite a few. Anyway, and also you're fairly active as well. Instagram is your choice, is it, of social media?
Follow me on Instagram, because I put all the kind of events and stuff I've got going on there. And I just really like connecting with people as well. So I'm always interested, that's how I connected with you guys. And
fantastic.
Better together, as they say.
And people who have been listening, yes, we'll have an extensive show notes with all sorts of links to recommended products and brands and things. Gary has given us permission, so he is our legal representative. He's everything, Gary is. So Gary said we're quite free to mention favorites and things. So we'll make sure, we do get all of these. We'll do a little list in the show notes for everybody. And the show notes appear either on, I put them into YouTube as well, because we can get links in YouTube. and they'll definitely appear at the STA.co.uk website, and also they appear on Podbean, who is our host. So they will all appear. Right, look at that time, 9 o'clock. So thank you so much, Lucy. It's been a wonderful hour, so much information, fantastic way to end our month on nutrition. So thank you for that. Next month, I'm actually looking next month. Here's a little call out. I meant to say this at the beginning of the podcast because more people are probably listening then. But if you're still listening to the podcast, I'm looking out for any specialists you may know or recommend in the use of artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. It's something which I've tried to stay away from because I've got so many social media accounts I manage and look after. I don't need something else to keep my eyes on a screen. But I'm aware of how much AI and ChatGPT can be useful for soft tissue therapists in terms of setting exercise programs, writing blogs, all sorts of stuff which can save you time. And also it's something which, again, you need to know what's happening to keep on the same page as your clients and customers and things like that. So I would like, if you've got any recommendations, I'm doing my own investigations as well, but if you've come across somebody who you'd like to have on the show, I've got my links, I've got my connections. I might be able to get hold of them and have them come on the show to give us some fantastic information on the use of AI and ChatGPT for soft tissue therapy. So yeah, feel free to email me, matt@thesta.co.uk, if you've come across anybody who you'd like to have on the show. Next Tuesday will be July the 4th. And as it's the first Tuesday of the month, it will be Ask Us Anything. So we'll have some members from STA and some of the regional reps here. Probably Big Gary, founder of the STA, will be here as well to answer any questions. If you have got questions you'd like, whether it be directed towards the episode we've had or just any questions about the industry, then email me, matt@thesta.co.uk. That's it. Thank you, Lucy. If you can hang around just for about 30 seconds, I'm going to close down the live lounge and then just thank you personally when we're off air. So don't click any buttons. Thank you again, Lucy. It's been a great hour. Do appreciate that.
Thank you. Really, really enjoyed that hour with you and the chance to share it. It's just great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. People listening to the podcast, thank you so much. If you really want to support us, it's all free, obviously. And the best way you can pay us is with your finger, just to leave a rating and a little review, some kind words. Just click that 5-star. It just helps the great word of our speakers appear higher in Google when people do put in nutrition, instead of having somebody selling something which we know is misinformed and not non-evidence-based. We want Lucy Williamson at the STA podcast to appear higher up in Google as soon as gut or microbiome is mentioned. So the way we do that is quite simple. You just got to leave us a rating or a review. So I'd appreciate if all 3,000 odd of you could do that now. I'll give you 5 seconds to do it. No, I won't. Right. Thanks, people. If you want to join us live, then we'll be back next Tuesday. Just come to the Sports Therapy Association YouTube channel at 8 o'clock. Thanks, everyone, who joined us live. And take care of each other. Look after that gut. Bye-bye.